G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. I've been here, there.
All right, credit for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk has to go to my father on the trip to Sydney, which I just got back from. We had talked about Leeton and the surrounding area where he grew up. We did a lot of his growing up. So this week's Two Ticks Town Talk is a Leeton in New South Wales. Speaking to him about it, there's a whole lot of details and tidbits I didn't know. And as myself and DK so often do, when something catches our interest, we do like to share it with you guys and girls. So Leeton is a thriving regional town in the Riverina district of New South Wales. Got a population of around 6,900 and is situated about 560 kilometres west of Sydney at an elevation of 138 metres with hot, dry summers and cool winters. So it's a service centre for one of Australia's most productive agricultural regions, known as Australia's rice capital and the heart of Sunrise country. And Sunrise is an Australian-owned company founded in 1950 by rice growers and one of the largest rice food companies in the world. Which is a big thing worldwide.
I genuinely did not know that was an Australian company. I'd never really thought about it before, but there you go.
Yeah, exactly. The centre of Leeton features a distinctive circular layout. Question for you, which means it was designed by which well-known architect?
He's the guy that did Canberra, I'm guessing.
That's exactly the guy. If you can't get it, I'll tell you. But yeah, you nailed the bloke.
What's his bloody name? Please tell me.
They named the lake after him, Lake Burley Griffin.
So, that's it.
Walter Burley Griffin designed it in 1910s with tree-lined streets, 102 hectares of public reserves, and some well-preserved Art Deco buildings, including 21 listed on the New South Wales Heritage Register. So the economy of Leeton, the area revolves around irrigated farming, citrus, rice, cotton, grapes, walnuts and wheat, as well as food processing operations like Sunrise and Arnott's and JBS Australia. So Leeton's surrounded by like lush orchards, rice fields, boutique wineries, Ramsar-listed wetlands, and it hosts events including the Australian Art Deco Festival, Leeton Sunrise Festival, and a monthly farmers market. The area is Wiradjuri country, so the Wiradjuri people have inhabited the Riverina for more than 40,000 years, living on the fertile alluvial plains formed by the Murrumbidgee and Murray River systems. So the Europeans got in the area in the early 19th century. Bloke John Oxley passed through in 1817 and Charles Sturt in 1838. Yeah, their names pop up with different Two Ticks Town Talks. So they're in the explorer mob. So by the late 1830s, the pastoral settlements had begun, accompanied, unfortunately, this feels like it's a qualifier every time we do a Two Ticks Town Talk, but accompanied by the usual conflict and displacement of the traditional owners that we frequently record in these segments. But that's the history. We don't pretend it doesn't happen. That's went on. So Leeton's got a Roxy Community Theatre, which is an Art Deco cinema, hotel, places. There's a whole lot of interesting buildings in there. And the town was named after Charles Alfred Lee, who was the New South Wales Minister for Public Works. which was a bit of a new one. Like Leeton normally is sort of, it's a little bit more, not precise, but a little bit more direct than that. So I thought, oh, okay, well, at least that's a twist. I mean, the usual thing some minister got in there, but this guy did have a little bit of a little bit of credit for it. So, and for a period, it operated as a prohibition town, like alcohol prohibition town. And the Australian poet Henry Lawson lived there briefly in 1916 to 17 while writing promotional articles about the area. If you have a look at the area, you may wonder how they managed to grow all that rice and nuts and fruit. And you may also twig to the fact that Walter Burley Griffin designed this town, because what caught my eye this week about Leeton and the surrounding area was the creation of what's known as the Murrumbidgee irrigation area. The town was deliberately planned as a purpose-built irrigation settlement. It's got a strong Italian heritage stemming from early 20th century and post-World War II migration. So a lot of Italian families became successful orchardists and wine makers, particularly around the nearby town of Griffith as well. So Griffith was also designed, well, I can't remember how many k's away it is, 50, 60, 100, I can't remember from the map, and I didn't write it down. But Griffith was also designed by Walter Burley Griffin and in conjunction with his wife Mahoney Griffin, which is a lesser known name, but she's apparently a well-established architect in her own right. The creation of the Murrumbidgee irrigation area and the establishment of Leeton and Griffith was certainly an ambitious and highly successful government-led development project for the early 20th century. Before they got the irrigation, the land around there, it was like just dry, barren, flat, red soil country with no permanent river nearby. And obviously the soil's still that red soil that a lot of us are so familiar with. But in the 1880s, there's a bit of a transformation began when the New South Wales Royal Commission into the Conservation of Water examined ways that they could use the rivers for agriculture. There was a key advocate, a bloke called Sir Samuel McCaughey. I hopefully got that right. I think Dad had mentioned his name, but can't remember that. McCaughey, he was a pastoralist who owned a property called the North Yanko property near Leeton, and there's a town near there still called Yanko. He had seen these irrigation practices in the United States, and he demonstrated the potential of the local soils by establishing just a small irrigation system at his place at Yanko, and then successfully lobbied the government to expand the concept on a large scale. So the New South Wales government passed special legislation around about 1912 to create the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, which ultimately covered 660,000 hectares in the Riverina. So they'd already started in 1903 digging canals west of Narrandera and the start of the Burrinjuck Dam on the Murrumbidgee River, approximately 30 miles upstream from the future Leeton site. Water was diverted from the Murrumbidgee, the closest point, which was a point called Darlington Point. There was no natural river or permanent water source at Leeton or Griffith. The Water Conservation and Irrigation Commission was established to plan and build it, and it constructed a network of main canals and smaller distribution canals that carried water just by gravity across the flat landscape to individual farms. So there's no need for complex pumping or anything like that. They planned it so that just the water would, basically, once you open the gates, the water goes through. So the farmers paid for the water they used, and gravity flow did the job. And I remember, because my when I was a kid, playing along some of those canals, because at that stage my grandparents lived in Leeton. So yeah, it was always interesting seeing the little like the main canal, and then there was just these side canals with gates and a wheel on that would meter the water in there, and just seeing these like perfectly flat paddocks. One of those sort of memories that came back to me thinking about this with the canals. So Leeton and Griffith, they were laid out simultaneously as the two purpose-built towns to support the scheme. Leeton was gazetted on 2nd of April 1913, and once the water began flowing in 1912, the barren plains, they just became highly productive land for fruit, vegetable, rice and other crops. And the government had put in roughly £4 million, which, 1912 was a shirtload of money, but the money rolled in, and it was a particularly good investment. They made it back in spades. So yeah, it was. I do have to give them credit for that. It was a really impressive public work schemes. One major outcome was the establishment of the Leeton Cannery at Leeton in 1914, and that was set up as a cooperative by local orchardists and other growers. It was a significant employer, pressing peaches and apricots and vegetables during World War II. It also supplied like a huge amount of canned goods for the war effort. And Dad had said that during the war, my grandparents would, along with other people, would work voluntarily at the cannery on the night shift just to keep the war effort and the supplies going. Each season, too, there were special trains from Sydney that brought the cannery girls, and they'd provide seasonal labour. And this cooperative model flourished for decades, but they basically had been reluctant to reinvest their profits into modern machinery, and it closed in 1965, which was a pity, because it sounded like it was working all right up to then. But yeah, so is that sometimes one of the problems with cooperatives? Sometimes the hard decisions don't get made. So they got a major boost after World War II when the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme threw some extra water into the Murrumbidgee River system, and that increased the supply through Blowering Dam on the Churrup River, and enlarged they were able to enlarge the Burrinjuck Dam. Brought a whole lot of extra growth in rice, wine and other industries. And the Italian migration was a big role in the region's development. So from the earliest 20th century, and particularly after World War II, Italian settlers arrived in big numbers to that area. Griffith, in particular, had a big, strong Italian character, but both towns benefited, and because many Italians had former farming experience, they integrated quickly and contributed to the success of orchards and later the wine industry. All the sort of things that we know and love about the Italian culture and ways of life, all that good, delicious stuff. Mind you, during World War II, this is when Australia was at war with Italy, there was about 700 Italian residents interred at the nearby Yanko Experimental Farm, which became a prisoner of war camp. They had used the farm to test out different things for the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, and then it turned out to get used for a prisoner of war camp. But the internees there farmed the land. They, kept going, so they were actually contributing to the war effort, contributing to the local food economy. And there was a railway line that passed through the property that on the way to oh God, what did he say? Can't remember what Dad said, but it went through. He said that while you're going through, they'd yell out "paper, paper" to the passing trains because they wanted to get some newspapers so they could catch up on what was going.
See what's going on. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. People would throw the newspaper out. I think it was probably one of those things of, we can see why the decision's been made, but we knew a number of you and are basically broken bread with you. So I didn't get the impression there was any real ill feeling. It was just sort of one of those necessary evils of the horrible part of war. Yeah. So it was originally leasehold. The government sort of thought, this is too valuable to give away to the plebs. So they had 60 or 100-year leases through the Water Conservation Irrigation Commission. But then once the responsibilities for water, electricity and local governments shifted to shire councils, they said, let's convert these leases over to freehold and offload the responsibility. So the area today, the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, continues to generate more than $5 billion annually for the Australian economy. And Leeton and Griffith stand as living evidence of what planned irrigation could achieve on what was once considered worthless lands. So it transformed the physical landscape, but created some thriving communities, supported generations of farmers, and also showed the long-term value of strategic public investment in regional development. So, as mates of the podcast know, I'm not the biggest fan of bureaucrats, but as I've observed, once they channel their efforts properly and exercise a bit of damn good management, they can get it right. And this week's Two Ticks in the Murrumbidgee irrigation area is a splendid example.
Very good. No, I like that. It's interesting sometimes how you're right. Governments can come together and plan a major infrastructure project like this and plan towns that end up absolutely thriving and become so critical to the country that we are today. It's pretty cool, actually, because you wouldn't think like rice would be particularly. Australia is such an arid country. Growing rice here just kind of seems a bit sort of backwards in some ways, but clearly not. You got the irrigation for it, and you do it the right way. It seems to work pretty well. So there's
looking at that soil and everything, and sort of thinking, you know what? If all we had was just a bit of water, this could be super abundant, and carrying that that vision through, and that what was his name? Sir Charles God, I can't remember his name. Sir Samuel McCaughey, 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 having the drive. I mean, he sounds like a pretty driven person. He was an Irish-born bloke, came over here and ended up owning hundreds of thousands of hectares and 1 million sheep. So, he had a bit of drive. But someone has to push this stuff.
You're right. Someone has to go, I can see the opportunity there. This is a good thing. Let's get the money and investment into it to actually make it happen. And I think that's kind of something we're missing these days a little bit, I guess, is that drive. It's not that people don't have it. It's that, the pieces don't come into play quite as easily as maybe they did in the past. So, but I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see some more purpose-built towns here in Australia. We friggin' need them. We need the houses, we need the people, and I think more of that sort of planned, successful communities, particularly. There's a lot of land out there on the other side of the Blue Mountains that a lot of it is being used, but there's a lot of it that isn't. And I think there's some still big opportunities out there that we're too coast focused in this country. And I think we should take Leeton as a perfect example of what we can build if we look literally inwards to the interior. and maybe focus a bit more attention and effort in that direction.
Yeah, I agree.